Valentine's Day, everybody, is what I would have said if I had actually managed to finish this in time before my trip to Japan. But now we will just have to pretend it's still Valentine's Day and we all didn't forget how to love years ago. So, to mark the occasion, I decided that out of all the video plans I have, because my brain just can't stop having ideas, send help, today we would answer a very important existential question.
What is love?
Specifically, what is love in a world like Hazbin Hotel's hell? Specifically about how in this world, in this society, relationships, especially the romantic kind, would function. In which way it would differ from our world, what would change in terms of attraction. Because apart from being dependent on the individual, love also typically manifests itself in conversation with the society you live in. What an appropriate pair-up would be, what to even look for in a partner, what shape a relationship has to take on. Those are topics where opinions will be shaped by the answers your surroundings will give in one way or another. And those answers change through time and space. What's considered beautiful and therefore be seen as staples in a desirable partner is also prone to change, and prone to the quickest change through the lens of history. Whether or not you adjust your tastes according to the norm or directly counteract it, that's still happening in relation to this norm. Now, sinners of the Hazbin Hell will obviously come with their own preconceived ideas about love and sexuality and all that jazz that they carry over from the living world. But these ideas can change over time, especially if you have decades and decades to be influenced by your new circumstances. So, without further ado, maybe we can find love in hell. Okay, let's find out how you can find love in hell and why you have to be a furry. Let's start with the most obvious. After you die and end up in the Hazbin world, you are quote-unquote immortal. You will portray the age you died as for eternity, meaning that firstly, you cannot rely on perceived age to reliably tell someone's real age. Two people can portray an age difference of 40 years and exist for the same amount of years regardless. And that might not sound like that big of a deal at first, but this uncertainty of age would be immediately destabilizing for a society that puts a good amount of value on age, like for example a lot of Asian countries do. In that kind of environment, while navigating social situations in your day-to-day life, there is a lot of security in knowing exactly how to interact with someone based on their age in relation to your own. Secondly, if you're able to become hundreds and hundreds of years old, the idea of respectable age necessarily has to stretch, as we see in the show with Zestial, who had to become around 500 years old to get to an age that is publicly seen as remarkable and worthy of respect. In the Hazbin Hotel, on the other hand, where almost everyone lived and died within the 20th century, age differences that do exist in that time frame inevitably have to be seen as irrelevant by comparison. That rabbit hole about age my mind jumped in sparked back in season 1 when Alistair was posing as a father figure to Charlie, and with that a question came to my mind. Was there really anything that lent itself easily to even make that comparison? We don't know how Charlie actually ages, but it could be within the realm of possibilities that she is even older than Elle. And even if we go by the ages they're presenting, 20-ish versus 40-ish, that's not impossible for a father and daughter to be, but still not such a big age gap to immediately assume this kind of relationship, I think. So what happens here is that for this episode, Alistair defines his and Charlie's relationship as a parental one to piss Lucy off, and Charlie goes along with it. To me, that scene represents fairly well how relationships in hell would have to be navigated. By independently figuring out on a case-by-case basis if you have a friendship or a romance or a parental relationship or whatever else with someone based on nothing but vibes. Not to say that social structures will be complete anarchy, there is still hierarchy factoring into relationships in hell. A hierarchy that is arranged by virtue of dominance over others. No matter if you achieve that by raw power or by manipulation or by assets you already have at your disposal. You're either someone who owns people, someone who is owned, or someone that's neither but most likely tries to become the former. And it's not as if power hasn't commonly been a source of attraction as well. Still, a system entirely built off of power is only really important for relations in a purely political sense. It doesn't say all too much about intimate relationships, which most likely would happen between people in the same social circle anyway. So let's resume in our endeavor to find love, shall we? The other big thing that would immediately and visibly change social life is the fact that everyone reawakens in their own special hell form when entering the Hazbin Hell. And this poses actually several problems which require some readjusting when compared to the human world. The first being that gender has to take a subordinate role from now on. Now, obviously everyone still has a gender and things like mannerisms that we recognize as some sort of gender expression, but generally speaking, when it comes to finding love, I would say it's rather beneficial to have some of those gay powers, because with the human form gone are also easily identifiable signifiers that have traditionally been gendered. And even if those signifiers are recognizable on a person, I'm not sure if they would still hold the same meaning regarding affection in the same way they do when attached to a human body. Does Angel have boobs? Or is it chest fluff? Who cares? He is a fluffy pink spider. He has 6 arms, for God's sake. Beyond the obvious parts, there's also size, body mass, hair, fashion, all things that were regularly assigned to fit the 2 base genders in one way or another, and all of which you can now more or less throw out the window. This furball doesn't even have a body. Going even further than that, having a taste based on physicality in general doesn't seem too smart anymore. The furry comment from earlier was only half a joke. You can still run into human-looking sinners, of course, but more often than not, a person will look vaguely like an animal, or an object, or a vegetable, or really anything. Humans at least belong to only one species, but in hell, every person is basically their own species. Among humans, you will sooner or later run into someone matching your personal tastes, but good luck finding a second grenade person. To circumvent this problem, you could either focus in on something very specific like eyes or nipples, or go the opposite route and let your personal preferences be something on the abstract, like the general shape or size of a person. But there sure as hell won't be a beauty norm anymore to help you find out what you're supposed to find attractive. Because how would you even determine what kind of body and face to declare as most attractive? Historically, beauty standards were often highly specific, sometimes ridiculously specific. If you ever want an out-of-body experience, try reading a Victorian beauty manual where one whole page is dedicated to the perfect shape of a woman's fingernails. But how much sense would it really make to define the perfect shape of an eyebrow or a nose if half of your residents don't even have noses, and if it would be utterly futile to even attempt to surpass those magnificent eyebrows that Husk has? On some related note, that's the reason why I find it so fitting that there's such a rather rigid fashion code in hell, with the top hat and the bow ties and the nipple pasties. Because in a society where every individual body has different prerequisites, fashion is the one unifying beauty standard that you can always reliably adhere to. Almost always. So, with all that said, what does that leave us with? If factors like age, gender, and appearance have lost meaning, then what even is important in hell's dating scene? If there are no social rules, then how do you find love in hell? Is it anarchy after all? Well, if nothing else matters, the only thing that's left to fall in love with is your soul. Or put differently, stripped away from all distractions, there's you, the rawest form of you that exists. That was the sappiest shit I ever said in my life, and I will never do it again. But as corny as it is, that has to be my conclusion. This is a form of society with one of the plainest feels possible when it comes to love, where you can shine through your character, your mannerisms, your actions, in short, all the things within you that you have a greater amount of control over, rather than aspects that are more incidental to your identity, where what's to fall in love with is simply your soul. Well, that was my trip into sociology. Right after silly swear word goofiness. One-to-one correlation if you think about it, swearing sociology. What's next? Who knows? Maybe the next installment of It Has Been 7 Minutes, maybe something else. You don't know, I don't know. I can tell you though, at some point it will be what I think is the best in terms of video essays that I have ever written. And if that is not a self-ad, then I don't know what is. Okay, so until then, bye!